What's going on, boys? Thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, life stuff. This is probably going to be a rambly one because I don't have a solid plan for this video, but the end goal, should we figure out a way to reach it, is to tell you to buy a gun and practice driving over animals on roads. Now, let's see if we can't arrive at that destination. We might change the title of the video. The title we're going with right now is Sam Hyde Nihilism. Let's see if we can get from Sam Hyde Nihilism to buying guns and driving over animals on roads. Every 2 or 3 years now, YouTube will recommend me some Sam Hyde thing, and I'll watch it, and then usually I'll spend that afternoon watching whatever he's been up to lately, a nice sampling, just to see if I'm still right. Because Sam Hyde and MDE were like the Among Us of the mid-2010s. That's when the whole new right rose, and the concept of these splinter movements, at least in the United States, was still young enough, and we were still young enough. It all seemed like it could go somewhere. And I left after I grew up a bit, because you realize this is like pissing in a different urinal. The sort of people who would, and still do, gravitate toward this new right, they might look different, they might use different words, but they're the same shit as they always are. They assume in the same way, and they work with the same assumptions. And one of my favorite little Patrice O'Neill tools when you are evaluating something: does something not make sense to you on a human level? Or give you pause on a human level? His example was, doesn't it bother you at all that they flushed Osama bin Laden's body down the toilet? Or that your elites dress up in robes and do rituals? Just on a human level, not super conspiracy, not any specifics, just on a human level. This is what this looks like. Does that not bother you at all? Does that not raise your suspicions at all? Now look at the new right with this tool in your toolbox. What do new right people want? They talk about wanting a high trust society, which is humiliation ritual is still the current humiliation ritual, but high trust society, I think, is the new or the upcoming humiliation ritual, like walkable cities were not that long ago. They want the family with the white picket fence. They want the respectable society, the polite society, the hard-working meritocracy. But then you look at new right people. Do they dress respectably? Do they speak respectably? Do they live respectably? Do they associate with respectable people? Do they work respectable jobs? Do they have jobs? You look and act like the green hair shits Sheriff Bell's friend, another sheriff, was complaining about in No Country for Old Men. And the new right outlook has gotten popular. It's had time to get popular. People follow this way of life, and a substantial number of them do. Is acting like a degenerate saving the West? How's that been going? Did things get better, or did you complain and then things got worse and now you're complaining more and you're thinking that's going to work this time? Are you donating more than $1? Maybe that'll resolve it. Maybe you should go into debt to donate a lot more than $1. And I'm not blaming Sam Hyde for all of this. I'm using him as a figurehead because he's the one who crosses my feed more often than any of the others do these days. How do you feel when you watch creators like this? These silly political creators, and there are a bunch of these dudes, or even the academic ones. What does your stomach tell you after you've watched 2 hour or more long podcasts of one of these people. Personally, all I feel is sick. And I'll tell you why. I feel sick because I was raised to believe in 40s America. I've never been a big fan of the whole concept of the 50s. First, the 50s weren't the 50s, but even if they were, that is a concept of mediocrity. I like 40s America because its concept is big things. The concept of the 50s feels like it's there to sedate you with this idea of comfortable mediocrity. I'm not a fan. So to see what is the most viable social or mimetic third party be basically a retarded version of what already exists, it's sickening. These comedians and academics, they aren't the ones who are going to build big fuck-off power plants. They aren't the ones who are going to create jobs and build up industries. They're jokes. And you think people would get wise after over 10 years of the same shit. And I thought it was all the next wave of young dudes getting into these sorts of people. It's not. You have dudes in their mid-30s and even 40s who like this sort of person. At what point are you going to realize they don't have answers for you? And if they did, you aren't the person to act on those answers, to do anything with the answers. They're certainly not going to do anything because their industry is your stupid ass. The feeling I get when I watch people like this is it's over. And that's rough because as pessimistic as I am, and as pessimistically as I'll talk, I don't actually think it's over. At least not completely. More Stellaris for your ears. This is what we're dealing with here, is the equivalent of the Great Khan rising, and you watch him conquer the entire galaxy slowly, and you have and you have an unexplored wormhole in your empire. So, and of course it's within his territory, the other side is, so you can't leave your borders without him ass rushing you. But you also won't be able to deal with him if you don't deal with him right now. Because once he finally gets to you, you are so done. But you also don't want to surrender and become a satrapy, because although... I hope I pronounced that right. Normally, if I don't know the pronunciation of a word, and I know I don't know it, I'll check. But we're already like 10 seconds into this audio clip. You don't want to surrender because you have something good, and if you surrender, you're going to lose it. But if you don't surrender, you're going to lose. So what you end up doing is, instead of swallowing your pride, because that's something I don't think an American should ever do. You should never swallow your pride. You're going to lose almost everything you have trying to protect the little you might come out of this with. But by the end of that, you will have retained something. And I think that's the situation we're in right now. We are so fucked, but it's not totally over. And do you know how the United States won World War II? It wasn't an excess of bravery or gallantry or intelligence, tactical prowess. There was plenty of that, but that wasn't the primary reason. The primary reason was industry. World War II United States could outfuck the planet by the end of the war. We are a cancer. If you can weather the storm, no matter how bad it gets, how humiliating it gets. I love the line from Matrix Reloaded. There are levels of survival we are prepared to accept. If you can accept those levels of survival while retaining your Americanness, that 40s Americanness, not this gauges in your ear, blonde streaks in your hair, dressing like a retard Americanness of today, I believe we can get something back, build something back that is worth believing in. But when I listen to people like these, like Sam Hyde, and it's so funny. In the one of the podcasts I listened to the iDubbbz thing that came up again. That's what got me back on this. And then I listened to two podcasts. He references Stefan Molyneux a couple times. Still, have you learned nothing? And that's another thing. These dudes who talk about wanting families and this white picket fence dream, most of them are childless. Anyway, when I listen to these people, all I see is the slow degradation of potential down into a bunch of fat retards wrestling with one another in mud. Or Indian shit, I guess. Everybody is still saying and doing the same shit as the situation deteriorates. And there's a moment in your life you need... responsibility, accountability is brutal, because you have to, in certain instances, in a lot of instances, unfortunately, you have to take it when you feel like you shouldn't. An example. A work thing happened. I should be blaming this coworker for fucking up, but I'm not going to blame her because I knew she was prone to do that, and I didn't take precautions because she hadn't fucked up in a while. But I knew I should have. The only person I have to blame for her fucking up is me. And I say this because, and I'm coping right now, if this class of dude can be deceived, then he should be deceived. You right now, you're 25, you're big into Sam Hyde. You deserve to be the dude who's 35, big into Sam Hyde. It's time is wild, because you know the guy who was 35 big, or is 35 big into Sam Hyde, was 25 big into Sam Hyde. That class of person. And you're watching this and you're realizing, Jesus Christ, the citizenry of the nation you love doesn't want to get a job, doesn't want to represent the society they claim they want to build. They never want to learn a lesson. They are sucking on this doom nipple. They have been for 10 years. They will be for 10 years more. And essentially, that means if you want to try to do something, you are alone. Or mostly alone. I feel sick because I'm watching the odds get stacked up higher and higher. Higher than you realized they were. And because people are fucking retarded, because people somehow don't learn from their experiences, generationally, that's something I can understand. That's something I can comprehend. That's something that makes sense to my brain. Which, it's brutal. That is a brutal cycle, never really learning, never really getting it. But I get it, because you need to learn hard lessons for yourself to understand them. Sucks, but that's the way it goes. But then, people don't even learn their own lessons. Were people always like this? Probably. You'd hope not, but probably. Eventually, you realize you'll need to change your vision of how you want to win if you want to achieve anything close to a win. Because this is not going to be this big MMO raid thing. People are not going to come together. People are not going to make good decisions. People are not going to learn their lessons and dream of a better future. They're not going to do that. They're not doing that, even as they talk about it. This is not an MMO. This is Left 4 Dead. You and maybe your crew, you can't plan on making small but meaningful contributions to this idea of the world getting better and then hope collectively you'll all slowly hold hands and sing kumbaya and buy each other a Coke and make the world better. That's not going to happen. You have no peers. Nobody is on your side. You need to get out of this groupthink idea. You need to get out of this broader tribalism idea. You need to get comfortable crossing your own barriers, going outside your comfort zone. Barriers and lines and comfort zones which were probably programmed into you, by the way, to keep you in this exact sort of spot. And you also need to start viewing yourself as the carrier, the lone carrier of the single ember of the empire you want to live in. Self-preservation is natural, self-interest is natural, but you need to start looking at yourself like it's more than that. Because for you, it is. You are the only person who can maybe start to build a little bit of the world you want to live in. Everyone else is your enemy. Everyone else is your opponent. The ones who don't attack you directly will keep you down passively and passive-aggressively. You are the only person who can save you from the situation you're in. And to do that, you need internally to separate yourself from people and to do what you can to become capable, to get your hands dirty. I think I found a good way to put another aspect of this. It's moral squeamishness. That is a huge issue. And maybe this is another thing I'm noticing about people. Everybody wants something, or everybody dreams about something. But this sentiment is a lot like what we were talking about in the last video with incels. I don't think most people actually want much other than not to hurt. Because when you really want something, you will find a way to get it. And if you don't find a way, if you don't even start trying to find a way, you must not want it that badly. Which is one of the reasons I don't trust much of the shit people say. And that's a good way to test what's inside you, too, by the way. There are tons of things I'll complain about, but I don't really care about most of them. Because I'm not doing anything about any of them. I don't have plans to do anything about any of them. I'm sitting here, I don't know what happened, I lost a lot of steam. Here is another YouTuber's idea of what I think you should do. First, as best you can, you unplug mentally and emotionally from other people. That's why I recommend when there is a turtle crossing the road, you don't swerve and miss it, you run it over. I have trouble with this because there are some things I view as true sins, as compared to whatever moralizer people tell you are actual sins. And what I think are actual sins are a byproduct of being raised in a moralizer society. Nonetheless, these true few sins matter a lot to me. And it feels weird violating them. For me, running over an animal is a really big one. It's casual cruelty in what is, to me, an extreme form. And it's weird because it's an animal, it's roadkill, but there's something vile about that. And that's exactly why that's the sort of thing you need to do, to train yourself to do. You don't need to try to become a true sadist and learn to enjoy it, but you need to be able to make yourself do these things without flinching. Both so you stay capable and so you don't hesitate, and also to deepen your disconnect, at least internally, from other people. Next, you need to let go of the vision of the thing you think you want. The longer you hold on to that fantasy vision, the less clearly you'll see what's in front of you, and the less able or willing you'll be to act to seize opportunities right now because they don't line up with how you think you want things to be in some ideal future that's never going to happen. The idea is you build something, or you survive until you can build something. It'll never be even close to what you want. But if you focus on what you want, then you'll miss out on your opportunities to have anything. And furthermore, when you let go, you become easier for life to mold. I never thought I would be in nonprofit work, but this is the most productive thing that has ever happened to me. And it is so hard to let go of visions, but that's something you'll need to do. And I didn't mean for this video to go into the advice section. I more meant to talk about how you need to kill small animals and buy guns. But if you want to get anywhere, you need to get comfortable with failure. And that's something people say, but I don't think it clicks. I don't think people understand what that means. Failure to me feels embarrassing. And lots of things can be failures. But you know you failed when you feel like a vulnerable, stupid little thing. And you feel that way when you fail, because when you fail, your idea of yourself, your ego, your protective ego, your ego is your shell, gets shattered. Unfortunately, as much as you need your ego, as useful as your ego is, as great as your ego is, it's like illusion magic. You are actually a dumb, stupid, vulnerable little thing. It just took a moment like this for you to remember that. And this is a hard thing to balance because you need to be delusionally on your own shit. At the same time, you need to remember the fact you aren't shit, you aren't anything. And I wonder how this was baked into us too. I don't know, I'm sure this is an evolutionary thing. I also feel confident this is part of socialization, this desire or embarrassment, this need to view yourself positively at all times, to be viewed by others positively at all times. But you're not going to find anything that works for you unless you go through the motions of failing at something and being reminded, maybe brutally, of what you are. In other words, don't tell yourself, okay, I'm not afraid of failure, and then do everything in your power to avoid feeling embarrassed, to avoid feeling challenged, to avoid feeling afraid. That's not what that means. Buy a gun because you need to be able to protect yourself, specifically when society blows up. Try to avoid getting into gunfights before then. Don't be afraid to push occasionally or do the whatever equivalent of cold calling would be for your situation. I think it's dignity and a sack is worth the sack, which is different from swallowing your pride, by the way. Swallowing your pride is surrender. Suppressing your dignity is strategy. The former's road leads you to a place you probably don't want to be and also can't come back from. The latter road dips, but then hopefully it goes up. You need to look at every situation like a survival situation. You need to start looking after number one and taking that seriously. It's more likely you will become capable enough to get what you want than it will be for society collectively to start being friendly all of a sudden and being nice and being fair. That's not going to happen. Every situation, what can you get out of this? And how not to look like you're doing that. And also learning to trust your gut. Righteousness is still a potent tool, but you can still be led astray if people are keying into things you want. Because the thing about righteousness is, although it often, well, it almost always in the end leads you to things you want, Sometimes it'll lead you to things you want directly, but more often than not, you'll be led to things you need to do but probably don't want to do, but you need to do them to get what you want in the end. But if people know how to tempt you, even if you know in your gut God is whispering in your ear what you need to do, you can still easily be tempted in any other direction. And that's a hard thing to do. When 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 someone sells you the lie you would like to buy. I'd love to buy the lie that protecting your kids and treating them very well will make them more effective people, will make them happier people. That's never been the case in my experience. Those people grow up to be the suckers. Those are the mediocrats. Abused children tend to be the ones who grow up into remarkable people. And well-abused kids tend to be the most remarkable. And that's a terrible thing. That is a difficult pill to swallow. Because it's not happy, it's not optimistic, but it's also true. If you love your children, you need to ruin them carefully. In life, you need to be a lone scavenger with ambition. And I'm thinking about all this. It is so complicated to get here, but the end result is rather simple. You need to be a person who can detect and make good decisions for yourself. I don't understand why that's so hard, but it is. It's like existence itself is trying to psych you into making bad decisions. Everyone and everything is your enemy. Maybe this is training to be a psyker. The more you can turn yourself into a vessel for the flow, a good channel for energy to flow through, which you do by running Drano through the pipes that are your heart and mind to get rid of all the sediment, which is what you've been taught to think, what you think you're supposed to think, people, shit, fear, emotions. The more or the clearer you get that pipe, the more whatever this energy is flows through you, and the faster you'll be able to make good decisions and follow through with them. And on top of that, the more good opportunities will be thrown your way. And I don't know why that is. That's something that happens. You know, it's the weirdest thing. I'm a naturally miserable person. But for a long time now, since I've been on this shit, I usually don't feel existential dread. Or when I have it, it goes away. Like that, just a few months ago, actually, there was that period, I remember it vividly. Feeling that existential dread, and then I said it would pass, and then it passed. And I'm not jumping and clicking my heels right now. I'm not a happy person. I'm also not a miserable person. Because there is purpose, and it's not entirely my purpose. And I don't understand my purpose. But at least for right now, I'm sure we'll go back into existential dread mode soon. I am okay with seeing what it wants to show me and trying to learn from what it shows me. Even when that means feeling terrible. And this is a state you need to get into, because the more able you are to be, the more malleable you are, you're like clay, the more you can be molded, the more you will be molded. Clay can't mold itself. And clay also can't expect retard herds and mounds of clay to mold it either. At least not in any sophisticated or decent, worth living for direction. Hey, do you think what's a good what's a good retard child's name? The child's name is retarded, but the parents are retarded for naming the child. But typically, you name a child a dumb name, the child's gonna be dumb. Do you think Thad, who has a mustache and likes wearing Hawaiian shirts and joking about the Jews every 5 minutes, do you think Thad, or the collective of Thads, I should say, do you think that collective is going to lead you anywhere useful? Do you think Thad, all the Thads, are going to teach you how to be a man? How to build anything? How to protect yourself? Or how to make your own decisions? No, the Thad collective is going to turn you into another Thad so you can be miserable that you're now a Thad. And in your misery, you will assimilate other potential independent seeds of life into more Thads. And among the Thads, you have the Deontays, you have the Zacharys. Have you ever read a Black Zachary? You get the idea. You live a life you don't hate by turning into a fruit fly. You surrender to the divine's guidance, and then you make yourself strong and durable enough to follow it, in spite of everything in this hell existence. You're getting so many other signals beamed into your stupid little fly brain, but you need to be able to sort out the divine guidance from the static and then have the willpower to follow it. This should be simple, and I think once you've got it up and running, it can be simple, although it's always work staying on that shit, because holy shit is it hard to stay on that divine path, because it winds and it doubles back and everybody and everything is trying to get you off it. But it's doable. It's complicated to get there, work to keep it maintained, but once you're on that road, you can stay on it. Maybe. Unless you're supposed to be thrown off it, or you're weak and you need to be taught a lesson, and you are allowed to walk off it, and then you have to find your way back again. But that's part of the game. This sounds retarded, but to live in your God's light, you need to be able to exist alone in society's darkness. You need to you need to focus on listening to this divine guidance in spite of everything, because this world will use everything it can to psych you out, and that's why running over small animals is so important, because that is something, even for me, that feels like something you really should not be doing. But if you can't do that, then however could you get to heaven? If you aren't killing small animals, driving over them anyway. It's fast. You're still clinging. But, and this, I'm laughing because driving over small animals is the bone smashing of pilgrimage. I told you in the beginning this was going to be a rambly one. We ended up moving from point A to point B, though. We did the flash forward thing. We did some usual suspect shit. Maybe a rant and a ramble like this is telling. Because what does it always come back to? It's not just to have faith. Like, you have faith and everything's going to be okay. God will take care of it all. That's not what we preach here. It always comes back to, you need to have faith and follow it. You have an active role in this situation and you need to be playing it. But first, you need to get yourself ready to receive your orders. And that's difficult, but then staying following them once you're in the field is even more difficult because you have no die-hard certain proof that you are actually following orders. You feel them, you get winks and nods and nudges from the divine, some bigger than others, but that's still not a concrete thing like an obelisk. You can say that thing there told me to do this, which is why it's faith. And I just got a little flutter. I haven't felt that in a long time. The flutter of the oceanic feeling. Wow, I haven't felt that in a while. Aggressively antisocial or anti-existential faith is the only path forward. It's the only answer. Or it's my answer, but it's the answer I'm telling you to believe in. I wish there were a pool we could set up and then fill with the faith liquid so we could bathe in it and refresh this knowledge whenever we needed it, instead of... It's like this is like a rest stop deep in the woods, and you have to fight to get to these places, and you don't always or even usually have access to them. This level of certainty, this level of peace. And right now I feel somewhat peaceful. I would really like it if I could feel this way at all times. But it doesn't work like that. Or maybe it could. Maybe all we need to do is become Venuses or Ishtars or Hecates, which I was looking into Ishtar, by the way. Didn't know she existed. That feels like the combination of Venus and Hecate I've been talking about, but we'll see. God's strongest soldiers. We're not God's strongest soldiers. We are in God's infantry. And maybe we could feel this way at all times if we would stop being such pussies and follow orders. Maybe we'll try that. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.